God's plan is not to make your life easy.
And he said, Mom, I've had a really bad car accident.
Hi guys, bom dia, boa tarde, boa noite, wherever you are in the world. I hope you guys are doing okay. Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jemima. And today I'm going to be talking about being sent to a new country. I call myself a 21st century missionary. It took me a long time to actually accept the fact that, my family and I are missionaries, but thinking about what brought us to Brazil, it was God. Like, God asked us to move to Brazil just over a year ago. It's about 18 months now, and I can link the video talking about our journey. Since my husband and I got married, we have moved about three times, and we have always moved cities and country based on God's instruction. So, to be honest, we are actually missionaries. We're sent by God to the cities and countries that we moved to. And I have to be honest with myself that we didn't come to Brazil for career progression. We didn't necessarily come to Brazil for anything that a typical migrant would move to a new country for. We did have my daughter here, but if I'm being honest, there were other countries that I would have preferably had my daughter. But then the Lord asked us to move here, and each place that we've moved to, we have done small groups, or we have done some sort of missions work or another. And I think I struggled with that because I felt like, I think we do ourselves a disservice when we feel like missionaries are only people that are sent into the bush, or go into deep jungles, or go into, places that are completely unreached. Everywhere needs missionaries, even cities. You have missionaries in the cities. Missionaries are not only people that are sent to the jungle, you have missionaries everywhere. And I had to accept the fact that, even though I am not in the jungle, I am not in the bush, the Lord sent my family and I here to do his work, mainly to do his work. We're not here, like I said, for career progression. I mean, enjoying the perks of the country is a benefit of moving here, definitely. But we know that we are here mainly to do God's work. And so I kind of wanted to give, because I know that a lot of people have seen our first video about our move and all of that, and, supporting us as missionaries. And I wanted to give a brief update on that, especially from my perspective. I think I was a bit naive in that, because every time we have moved, we have hit the ground running. So I believe that, okay, we're going to come to Brazil and we're just going to hit the ground running. We're going to get into things and stuff like that. And the first thing we did was we found a local church to serve. Thankfully, the Lord led us to a church. Our pastors are missionaries as well. They are missionaries from America, and it's an English-speaking church. It's one of 3 English-speaking churches in São Paulo, I believe. We're led to that church, and even though it was hard because I was pregnant and then I gave birth, and so serving has been hard. Like I said, I think I was a bit naive. I just figured that, okay, as soon as I give birth, we're just we had so many initiatives that we wanted to do, but it's not in my home country where I have a huge amount of support. It is my husband and I who are basically with our kids, and we have really young children. So we sensed that the Lord was like, okay, take the first year or so and dedicate it to family. You have little children, and you have to dedicate that time to raising them. And so we did do that. And thankfully, even in that, my husband was called upon to speak in church, to preach in church. And we just knew that was the favor of God, because the pastor has been the lead pastor in that church for about 8 years. And nobody, I think except for one person, but nobody has spoken apart from him. And so They've never really had a holiday. And so they were just led to ask my husband to speak. And we are from very different backgrounds, very different denominations, culturally in every way. So for us, this was just like, okay, this is God's favor because we didn't expect it at all. And that was amazing. And he's spoken a few times since then. And for me, being a mom, it has been hard because, for the most part, I have had to stay on the sidelines and care for my daughter, who is 16 months now, 16 months plus now. But at the time, I really just had to care for her. And I really just thought that, I would be doing more. But I think another thing that I overlooked is the fact that caring for my daughter is ministry. Caring for even my son, even though my husband took the bulk of that, is ministry. All of this is ministry. Motherhood is ministry. Raising your children is ministry. Caring for your children is ministry. It's worship to the Lord. And I overlooked that because it is not seen as an important part of life. I believe that mothers, even though they are heralded, they are still somewhat overlooked and unseen, by society. On Mother's Day, everybody makes like, oh, hullabaloo. But after that, everything kind of dies down. It's like, okay, you've had the baby, get on with it. So I think for me, it was hard to come to terms with that. And I had to remind myself that. And I think it was looking back, I realized that this is very much ministry. As your husband speaks in church, you being with your daughter and raising her, nurturing her is ministry as well. And so I wanted to say that, for any mothers who may be in a similar position and may just feel like they are unseen and they're looked, you are not unseen. You are not overlooked. The Lord sees you, and what you're doing is as important as if your husband is doing more public things. As time went on, I was then able to join the choir, and once a month. So we stuck with once a month, but that has been like the first phase of the work that we're doing in Brazil, serving in our local church. My husband was then asked to lead a foundation class in church, and he wrote the workbook and he did all of that, and that was amazing. And now we've come into the season where we're able to do a bit more. I have joined the choir and he still speaks in church, and I'll probably show a video later on, or I'll share a video talking more about this or sharing more about this. He has begun to work with homeless people and drug addicts in an area in Sao Paulo called Cracolândia, which is known for crack addicts, drug addicts, homeless people. And, every week he goes there to minister and to volunteer to help rehab. So that is really it in a nutshell when it comes to the missions work that we're doing. And again, while he's doing that, I take the kids he usually takes my son to school in the morning while I take my daughter to school in the afternoon. Yes, my daughter started daycare, guys. If you've been following all the videos, she started daycare for a few hours. So he usually takes my son to school. I take her in the afternoon. But when he goes, I have to get ready. And I think I'm going to do a video like just showing our routine on the days that he goes to do missions work in Cracolândia while I'm doing missions work at home, right? So I do all of that, and then I take them both to school. And so I wanted to share a bit more in this video, just following me to church. This was my first day joining the choir, and I was so excited because I haven't been in a choir in years. I have done my own personal music, but I haven't ministered in years, and it was such an honor to be able to do this and to serve people in this way. So if you guys want to follow our journey, we're documenting our journey through our newsletter. The link is below. You can sign up to The Watchmen at substack.com. You can sign up to our newsletter to get more info on our journey as missionaries in Brazil. And I hope that you enjoy the rest of the video. Ciao, ciao. I counted all as long. Lead me to the cross. Savior, I come, quiet my soul. But I'm not as late as I thought it would be. I mean, this week has been crazy. I also had a stomach bug, so that didn't help. Been up since 5 with my husband. But if for anything, it's nice to be back at church serving. I haven't done this in years. So my church is in the cinema, and I think that's pretty cool. That's the auditorium.
God's plan is not to make your life easy. And I don't know if you admit this, but isn't this kind of like if and when we pray, we wouldn't say it like this, God, just make my life easy, but isn't that kind of what we want? Now, if you have an easy life, I don't think that that's wrong, and you shouldn't feel guilty. But I don't think that God's plan is for you and for me to have an easy life. This is not necessarily His plan. I think to have a growing, strong faith, you must also have uncertainty.
You probably know by now, but I like to call it these times in our life, these seasons that we come into, that we don't have the answers. It messes with our plan. It's not in the plan. That is what I call certain uncertainty. And certain is when you know. That's what the word means. Certain, you know. Uncertainty, you don't know. There's nothing definite. Well, my personality, and I think this is why Bob suggested me talking about it, is I am a planner, an organizer. I like to know. I like to know the plan. I like to know the details, like all of them. And when it doesn't go according to my plan, it's a very difficult place for me to be. And I want to just kind of share that through our married life, our ministry life, our family life, and just the world, things happen that do not make sense. Things happen that aren't in the plan. Things happen that you don't have the answer. You don't know. And if you haven't experienced this yet, sorry, but it's coming. But probably you have. I just want to give you some examples how it's happened in my life. Well, 1999, we're old, but Bob had been in student ministry in Texas for like the first 10 years of our marriage, and we decided that we would move from Texas to Madison, Wisconsin, which was basically a foreign country to me and to both of us, really. We'd never been there. We didn't know anyone there. We were going to start a church there in our house. The house which we did not have, we had to find an apartment online. This was, you can imagine, freaking me out because we knew nothing. Our kids were 4 and 1. We were leaving all the family, all the grandparents, all the babysitters in Texas and going to this place that we knew nothing about. And it was a scary, difficult, uncomfortable place to be. It didn't go with my plan. That wasn't the plan. And sometimes that happens And then 17 years later, look where we live, right? Like, the same kind of thing happened, but this time you add, I don't know the culture, I don't know the language, we don't know the people. Like, I don't know how Brazilians live, I don't know how they cook, as if I cook, but like, that's not the plan. I don't know these details. And so it's a difficult place to be. Also, we had lived in Sao Paulo for a little over 1 year. And we had a couple from the U.S. that was here visiting us. And we were near Avenida Paulista showing them around the city. And I got a call from one of my sisters that said my dad was in the hospital, that he, they're running some tests. They weren't sure what was wrong, but he was older, but he didn't have any issues. So okay, keep me updated. And we began to just keep going with our company, our visitors. And they called later that night and said, or later that afternoon and said, they think, the doctor said he's kind of getting worse, and so the family probably should come. Well, I live in Sao Paulo, so Bob got me a flight to go be with my family, and I didn't make it home in time. He had already passed away when I got there. And that wasn't the plan. That was not in my plan. I did not know those details. And it's a hard place to be. About 2 years ago, our kids were supposed to come visit us here in Brazil in February. That was still when the COVID restrictions were still in place for you to fly. And I guess about 4 days before they were supposed to come, our son tested positive for COVID. And so he had to call and say, I can't come, I got a positive test, they won't let me fly. And you're frustrated again. That's not the plan, God. This was my plan. The details were set. Well, luckily, we could cancel and reschedule for June. So, okay, new plan. Lots of plans. We had a plan to take them to Rio. I was already thinking about making cookies and banana nut bread and everything. I had the plan. And 4 days before they were supposed to arrive, I got a video call from my son, which was kind of weird in the morning. And he was in the hospital. And he said, Mom, I've had a really bad car accident. I broke my back in 2 places, and I broke my finger, and I have surgery tomorrow morning. That's not the plan. And that's my second plan, God. That's not the plan. Certain uncertainty, when these things happen and you don't know, it can be a very difficult place. Even if you aren't a planner, even if you aren't someone who likes the details, bad things happen. Even when you're a Christian, even when you have faith, even when you're trusting God, bad things happen. That's just the reality. And personally, and mentally, emotionally, I hate being in this season. But spiritually, between me and the Lord, sometimes it's the best place for me to be. Now, I'm not saying I like it, but I'm saying sometimes God uses these times, these uncertain times, to slow me down and let me know you are not in control. I'm in control. He can grow me, grow my faith, and grow I depend on Him more those moments where I don't have a clue, I don't know anything. And even though it's still difficult, that's a good place for my heart to be. When we don't know and we're facing certain uncertainty, the best thing that we can do is hang on to what we do know about God. And these are some things we do know. God is good, and He does good. He will never leave us or forsake us. He is for us, not against us. He loves us. And He Himself is our joy, our hope, our peace. We know He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. We know that we can trust Him. We know that there is light in Him. There is no darkness. And that we know that even when we don't know, He knows. And even when we're uncomfortable and it's difficult and scary, He is walking through it with us. We're not alone. Certain uncertainty will happen. And it can help you also think, am I trusting in God? Is my faith in God? Or is my faith in my plans? Am I trusting in the Lord, or am I trusting in the details? Certain uncertainty. There's going to be times you don't know, but hang on to what you do know. And Jesus is the one thing that is certain.